looking at VSP vision. For those of you who have glasses, you probably are using our insurance benefits, right? I'm in charge of our CRM systems, our marketing systems, and e-commerce systems. And today I'm going to talk about a little bit about tips for perfecting our connected shopper experience. So we use a lot of Salesforce technology, and we're doing it through a pretty big digital transformation. And I want to talk about a little bit about how we're using that. So just a little bit about VSP. We're actually a pretty old company. We're about 70 years old now. We use a lot of technology, though, as you can imagine, in the insurance field. We have mainframes still we're using. We're upgrading those. But we really do have a passion for eye care. And we're technically a nonprofit. With that said, we are doing leaps and bounds and growing into other businesses. So I'm going to concentrate on one business unit overall, but we are heavily vertically focused. So what does that mean? We're not just focused on insurance. We actually make glasses. So these glasses here, we actually have frame manufacturers around the world that do that. We actually make lenses too. So we have manufacturing operations that we have to tap into. And if you're lucky enough to have VisionWorks retail stores, we're the parent company of them. So they're a subsidiary of us. So we have a retail outlet, brick and mortar outlet, which is really interesting. On the solution side of the house too, I talked about our frames, which are Marchon and Altera. And then the use case I'll be talking about today is actually Eyeconic. So we have a B2C presence out there that we use, and we're using a lot of technology around that we're pretty excited about when partnering with our friends at Salesforce. And then the other side of the equation, we actually do software services. So we do EHR, very focused on vision though. We do EHR, software services, so on and so forth. Okay? And then we have a loyalty program for our providers called Premier Program. I'll talk a little bit about that as part of that connected experience. Okay? But as I talked about, Eyeconic is our way of going direct to consumer, right? So what we're trying to do is make sure at the end of the day, the members are using their benefits, right? So as demographics change, as buying habits change, a lot of people want to go online, especially in this little thing we call the pandemic. They don't get to go see their providers, so on and so forth. So what that means is we're giving another channel of allowing them to go off and use their vision benefits network online. Okay, so this is what we are thinking about when we think about perfecting connected shopper experience. So when I go through this presentation, it's not just about the online experience of the end user, but we're thinking of things from a global perspective and how we're actually leveraging other business units as we go along in the journey, right? So I'll touch on a bunch of different things, but we're taking a very big enterprise focus. So number one, when we're doing this, and I go and I talk to our leadership, we're always aligning things to what our business goals are. Regardless of what we're doing, if it's the shopper experience, if it's checkout, whatever we do, we're always giving business value back to our CTO and our leadership to say what that value is going to be, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The other one I'll talk a little bit about is question me. So what does that thing mean? That means when I'm working with my stakeholders in the business, they want to know that we're actually pushing them. And what I mean by pushing them is to say, for example, I'll talk a little bit about it, we need a new order management system. Well, by digging into that, we found out that there's a lot of processes that we actually could be more efficient at. It could be demand signals, so on and so forth, right? So it's not just about focusing on technology. I'll get to it in a minute. The other one is know me. And what know me we'll talk about more is from a customer experience. A lot of demographics are changing. A lot of people want to interact online, and you really need to figure out what does that mean? What does that presence mean out there? And then floor we call blur the lines. So I'm sure everybody's experienced this, but when you're going and looking at your workforce, it's not a traditional workforce anymore. So as we're looking at things like if customer service comes online, how do we actually leverage that touch point? And then 5 is thinking enterprise in mind. So not just thinking about what we have for retail, but how are we leveraging other data within the enterprise? So let's talk about number 1, planning those key initiatives, right? So when looking at that, we really sat down with our leadership and defined what digital transformation really means. Now, luckily for us, we did this a little bit before the pandemic, but really aligning the people around what is Eyeconic, how are we going to serve our customers, and what does that real definition of digital transformation mean? It went a long way in aligning our leadership on what we needed to do to actually upgrade our websites, what we need to do around our order management experience and our connected experience. And then what we did is we bucketed our we call them aspirations, around short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So we sat there and looked at what are some of the things that we need to do right now that we can focus on the customer. One of it is the checkout experience. Ours was horrible. As we went through focus groups, we looked at all these different screens that people are going through for our checkout experience. We since have streamlined that a lot, okay? And again, align those things to your corporate goals to show those values and disruption, okay? The second thing from a question perspective is question me. So I will say one thing that I love working with my partners is we have a great relationship with the business, and they want us to push them, and they want us to be pushed as well. So I'll give you an example. One of the things I kind of alluded to was we had the business when I first started, VSP comes in and says, Derek, our order management system's horrible. We need to upgrade it right now. But what we did is we process mapped things out, and we went through each one of those individual pain points. We asked very simple questions. Is it a process gap? Or is it a technology gap? What exactly is the pain point around that? So each one of those process maps, we literally had little sticky notes that we put up there and said, is it process, technology, how could it be solved? Which was, we probably walked out of there, I'd say 70% of it was stuff that we could leverage process-wise, 30% of it was around technology, right? And one of the things we got out of it was, hey, the way we're doing consignments through our DC, we're not leveraging demand planning, for instance. We need to be leveraging that more, right? We're not getting good signals back from our ERP systems to say, are we actually out of stock? It's like we figured out like the batches took 3 days to come back with, accurate inventory data. So those are types of things that we thought about too, right? And then we looked at things like cart abandonment, right? Just good old-fashioned traditional metrics. What's going on with our cart abandonment? Let's actually have a focus group. Go out and ask people, why are things going on out there? We looked at conversion rates too, right? How do we actually get our conversion rates up? And that's when we started looking at and having more focus groups around checkout, so on and so forth. Then the third thing is something I learned as being an ex-consultant at a big firm, is we have a saying that we hunt as a pack. So business and technology, if you can establish that trusted relationship with your partners, it goes a long way going forward, okay? Let's go to the third one, which is know me. We think of our customers as a long-term journey. We don't think of them as just one and done, they've done a checkout experience. We want to know things like, what did they buy? Have they actually used their benefits before? So we're starting to connect all that stuff through insurance and through our commerce engines, right? And then we want to leverage those insights into delivering those custom tailored messages. So what does that mean? That means as we start looking at our members, because we know what our members are, if they buy through Eyeconic, we know trends that are happening in the marketplace, right? What are the frames that they like? What are some of the other styles they like? If we have campaigns going on, maybe one of the things that we want to do is flatten our demand curve. So what does that mean? That means like, if you're anything like me and are lazy, you don't use your benefits till December. You're like, gee, I got gases that I can buy in December. Maybe we want to do promotions that are more mid-year and say, hey, allow people to buy classes and we can shapes and stuff around demand, right? And then validate those customer functions that create those higher ratings, right? So one of the things that we went through and did a pretty thorough analysis is going back to that one example. If you imagine everybody's buying their glasses at the tail end of the year, usually your shipping times get longer, and then they're in a supply chain, they take a really long time, right? Well, imagine you getting a customer survey coming out saying, how was your customer experience? I never got my glasses. Not exactly a great experience, right? So just small things, really looking at the end-to-end of how things work, really focuses on that connected solution, okay? So the fourth thing that we talked about too is blurring those lines. So what we're doing is we really want what we call take advantage of that digital FaceTime with customers. If you're online, they're not going to call you up. So if they're up asking questions about, hey, where's my order? You can talk about their order. One of the things that we're trying to blur the lines too is to say, hey, we realize you haven't used all your benefits. You know, you can use your benefits in these areas. So we're having those customer service reps not just be traditional customer service reps, but you kind of saw in the keynotes today is really blurring those lines of what a customer service is, and that's what we're going through. Finally, the 5 is the connected enterprise experience. So having that connected architecture for us, being on Marketing Cloud, being on Commerce, we launched OMS, which is a good product, brand new product, but it's still a good product. We're partnering with Salesforce and with customer service, and I'll talk about this in our architecture diagram, our conceptual architecture in a little bit. We truly are giving a 360-degree view of the member and what's going on with them. So now we know what's going on with the member, how do we tailor our marketing experience, and then all the way through that 360 degree, right? And then finally what that does is we call this ruthlessly gaining insight and alliances from our adjacent businesses. So if you imagine I have a B2C channel now, I'm able to leverage insights from that and talk to our frames sales reps that are talking to the providers and saying, hey, here's what we're seeing as trends. Are you starting to see the same thing? And vice versa. So now we're able to use Tableau to say, what are some of the things that we're doing in merchandising that they can leverage that we can either adapt or change our mix overall on the B2C side, the B2B side, but all this stuff that we're making those adjacent businesses start to talk to each other. So we're really excited about that. So this eyesore, for you tech geeks out there, is a little bit of a conceptual diagram of what we're doing, right? So we are using Commerce Cloud for our B2C transactions, and we're using the customer experience, we're using web analytics, we're developing the platform, all that good stuff too, right? Now what we're doing too is we're feeding that back into our marketing engine, and now marketing's taking a look at what's going on with that. So you kind of see that over here on the Marketing Cloud. And based on that, we can do some really interesting stuff from a promotions perspective. So what could that be? It could be Eyeconic focused. It could be, hey, we've got new brands that we want to launch, so on and so forth, based on algorithms that we do. But it also could be, we know more about our members now, and then we can actually go off into some of our members and do some adjacent marketing campaigns too. So for instance, if we have aging populations, right? A lot of people are going to start going into government benefits, so on and so forth. So we're able to do that. And one of the things that we're doing too, as part of that, is our order status. We're actually pushing all our order statuses out through Marketing Cloud. We're not doing traditional email. We want to know, are they clicking on it? All that good stuff from an analytics perspective. One of the other things we're doing is we are doing our order management. We actually call it order orchestration. So when I go talk to leadership and my staff, when I go talk to SAP and stuff, I tell them I'm doing order orchestration. I'm not taking over order management. So what does that mean? It means it gives me flexibility to figure out how I want to route orders and actually send it to SAP. I let SAP do its own ERP functions. I want to be able to integrate that into Salesforce. So if I'm having a stockout situation, or if I'm having any kind of situation, I can then create a case or an activity or anything I need to do within the flow and be able to do it relatively quickly, right? And then what we're also using is Service Cloud. So one of the things we have on the Eyeconic side is when you actually do your order, you actually have to upload a prescription or verify a prescription. We're allowing people to actually upload that, and if there's a problem, we actually do an automatic case against it. And they go and talk to the doctor to say, hey, this expiry date looks like it's out, are you willing to renew their prescription, right? We're since going to look at using AI and ML functions to automatically read those prescriptions. So now that we're trying to do is we're trying to get that turnover faster and create and break those constraints, because we have a lot of people just literally looking at prescriptions to make sure that they're validated correctly. So we're looking at AI and leveraging Salesforce around that. Okay. The other thing too is with this, our customer service reps are able to see the entire order history up there. They're not flipping between screens, they're not going in between SAP, they're not doing a bunch of stuff. All that stuff is right there in their, what we call a cockpit. Okay, so overall, what does this mean for us? So overall, we're starting to see that cross-channel engagement, which is great. We're really looking at our customer journeys and really leveraging that engagement and customer fulfillment and service on our back-end health systems, and gain that really true single view of what's going on with the customer behind the scenes, right? So here's what we've seen partnering with Salesforce, and they've been great partners for us, is a 35% in conversion rate. And that means relative, I want to make sure I say this, it's relative conversion rate. It's not a 35% conversion rate. That would be stellar if we had that, right? But we've also had a lot of year-on-year growth, about 18%. And then what that means overall for VSP overall, not so much our Eyeconic members, is we're able to service those 88 million members. So you can see we really leverage Salesforce. We've done a lot of investment in it. So we're using Commerce, Health Cloud, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and using MuleSoft as our integration. So with that, that's all I had. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.